Okay, this is class 82 of the Golden Doves. I want to explain that we're studying the structures and syntax of languages. And what's important to know is that this is very tedious, this is very hard work. And yet, this can open up your mind, because when you become aware of the internal structures of the language that you speak, or perhaps the language that you don't speak, it makes you understand that thought is oftentimes a derivative of those structures and syntaxes, so that by becoming aware of that, you're becoming aware of certain internal thought processes, and now perhaps you can break free of some of these structures, right? So a lot of the arguments people have, left wing, right wing, liberal, communist, Marxist, crazies, loonies, conservatives, a lot of the different types of arguments that people have, and even people within the same language, have to do with deeper mental constructs, right? Many of these mental constructs are actually built by the language. Some of them are deeper, so people speaking the same language, of course, have arguments, because there's deeper forces within the psyche that impel us to create these mental constructs. But the language is one of the building blocks of thought, so it's so important to understand how these building blocks work. We're doing it in the context of Hebrew, more Semitic languages, but still, you become aware of the way these things work and the way these building blocks are put together, and then you become aware of your own thinking. So I want to do this one paragraph today on page 44 of the Golden Doves. The absence indicated by the third person is particularly evident in the Semitic perfect verb. So you have perfect verbs, you have imperfect verbs. A perfect verb is a verb where there is a completed action. For example, yesterday I completed the 5-kilometer race. Okay, a completed action, right? Yesterday I ate lunch at 6 o'clock. Completed action. But then there can be an imperfect verb. An imperfect verb is where the particular time is not clear. So I say, I've been studying Semitic languages for 20 years now. You're still studying. The action is not necessarily complete. It was raining all day yesterday. That's an imperfect verb. Maybe it's still raining now. Maybe it's not. But you see how it's imperfect, right? On the other hand, I can say, before moving to France, I studied French for 5 years. That's a perfect verb, right? So, the absence indicated by the third person, when we spoke about how the third person verb in Hebrew is missing the pronominal suffix, which would tell us who the subject of the verb is. So in ani achalti, I ate, ti is a pronominal suffix indicating the first person. Ata achalta, ta is a pronominal suffix indicating the second person. Hu achal, no pronominal suffix. And we discussed this last class, and we said that that's why the third person is hidden, right? I'm not going to repeat that. So this absence is very clear if you look at the perfect verb. The absence is very clear. Why? In Semitics, the person is marked in the perfect verb by a pronominal suffix. Etmol ata achalta aruchat tzahorayim. That's a perfect verb. It's complete, and there's a pronominal suffix. Ata achalta. Ta is a pronominal suffix, right? Pronominal because it's a pronoun. It's a suffix that indicates a pronoun of the subject. The pronoun of the subject of the verb, right? The third person masculine singular has a 0 pronominal suffix. Again, hu, achal, no pronominal suffix. Alif, kaf, lamed, that's a triliteral verb. There is no suffix or prefix for that matter. Right? The third person masculine singular has 0 pronominal suffix, as we just said. In the words of Rabbi Yonah ben Jannah, the personal suffix of the third person masculine singular is concealed, right? So hu achal, the word achal conceals the third person in the verb. It is concealed in the verb and it is not marked. The third person is only implicit. Now this is my father writing, but never actually present in the verb, right? So the verb hu achal implies that there's a third person. According to him, meaning according to Rabbi Yonah ben Jannah, The suffix in the third person feminine is not the sign of the person. Now you might say, wait, hold on, but when we say hi achla, that's third person, and in addition to the three letters of the root, alif kaf lamed, you have a he. Isn't the he pronominal suffix? And the answer is, it's a suffix. It comes at the end of the word, but it's not pronominal. The purpose of the he, is to indicate gender, right? So likewise, the suffix of the third person, according to the Biur HaMidrash, the suffix in the third person feminine is not the sign of the person, but of the feminine gender, right? Likewise, the suffix of the third person plural, hem achlu, they ate. You have a suffix there, vav. That vav is not a pronominal suffix. It's to indicate plural form. Is a mark of the plural, not of the person, right? You see? So again, the third person is always hidden. And even when you have a suffix in third person, it's not a pronominal suffix. That's the point. It's a gender suffix, it's a plural suffix, right? Similarly, let's look at prefixes now, before the word. Similarly, the prefixes of the imperfect verb do not indicate the person, but only the tense. So let's take the word achal. Machar, he, tochal. Tomorrow she's going to eat. That's an imperfect verb. When is she going to eat? When is she going to start eating? When is she going to finish eating? That's imperfect, right? Machar, he, tochal. So you have a prefix, the taf, right? That taf is not indicating person. It's indicating tense. It's future tense. He tochal. The taf indicates the tense. Doesn't indicate it's not pronominal, right? It's not a pronoun, right? This is why the prefix ta appears in both the second person masculine. You can say mahar ata tochal. Now there, it's a second person. The second person is not hidden. And you say mahar hi tochal. The third person is hidden. So how can you have a ta in the case of the second person as in the case of the third person, if in the case of the third person is nistar and is supposed to be hidden? And in the case of the second person, well, I understand the second person is not supposed to be in it. But the answer is that taf, that prefix, is not pronominal. It's not to indicate pronoun. It's to indicate tense, future tense. So mahar hi tochal, mahar hu yochal, right? That's a yod, right? But it indicates future tense. Mahar atat tochal, second person, you shall eat. So there's nothing between the second and third person because that prefix is there to indicate tense. This is why the prefix ta appears in both the second person masculine, right? Mahar atat tochal, second person masculine, and the third person feminine, mahar hi tochal, right? So that's enough for one day.